Tara Schnetzler. Welcome to the Carrie Croft Show.
Thank you, Carrie Croft.
I'm really happy you're here.
I'm very happy.
Yeah.
It's weird to say happy when I have, I'm learning that I'm allowed to be happy, sharing my story, that, when people ask me how things are and I say, oh, good, then I'm learning to not dismiss those feelings, and I'm allowed to feel that way now.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
It really is. And what's incredible to me sitting here, like locking eyes with you, this has been the scariest venture for me so far, like breaking off and doing this show. And it's like you're in this dark room and you're like, why are you doing this? Like, what are you doing this for? And I was like, Carrie, just move forward. There's things to be learned and people to meet and gifts to come out of this. And I'm sitting here with you and I'm like in this new studio, and I just have so many feelings because I'm like, we wouldn't have, we may have met, but like here we are together.
I know.
And I feel like it's serendipitous.
It is. I feel like so many things in my life are serendipitous now, but that's the journey that I'm on.
Yeah.
And learning to embrace that, and be thankful for those things and find the graciousness of it.
Yeah. And so I have Evan Simon. She works at SOS to thank for the actual connection to you. Evan came up to me after a class and said, hey, I have this woman. Here's her story. You may want to reach out. And so that was the direct connection. But then, as usually is the case, there's always these kind of peripheral connectors, right? So then we find out that you are a huge Beats Fitness fan. Yes. Right. And you love to go hip hop and do the thing with Angie.
In a few years.
Okay.
But
maybe you and I will go back. You will come back with me.
Angie would go nuts if you drag me back, because she's been begging. But I did do it for years. She offered free childcare. I think it was $1 or something. I don't know. But I had no rhythm, but it was so fun. And she's like, yeah, you do. And then my girls would watch from the doorway. Mom, you really don't have rhythm. And I'm like, but I'm working out and I'm trying. And
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Leave mama alone.
Exactly.
So come to find out, you and Angie are great friends, and Angie knew Willie and had a special connection with Willie too.
Sure did.
So before we get specifically into Willie, as I was just trying to read on Zen Hen and this great boutique that you started, so you and your family moved to this farm and you wanted space and land, and I can already tell that from your aura here, where it's like you just feel like a very natural kind of woman of like where I'm like, oh, you I kind of admire already this energy that you've got.
Thank you. We built, it was 5 acres of old cornfields, surrounded by trees, but just flat.
Okay.
But we put a pond in, we built a barn, and my husband promised the girls and I that we could have additional animals. We had big dogs, that was it. And so we were finally able to get we had baby chicks ordered that we were going to pick up at the local feed store, that we were scheduled to pick up the week after Easter. And but Willie was diagnosed Easter of 2020, and we came home from the hospital, and I'm like, I don't want these stupid hens. Like we're just trying to grasp everything that had fallen on our plate. And the girls begged. They're like, please, please. So we went, long story short, we went and bought the first 6 hens. We're now up to, I think, 28. But they provided an outlet and some just fun craziness during her diagnosis, during her treatment. There were days she and my husband and Estelle and Lou, her sisters, he had to build another coop within 6 months because we outgrew. And I didn't want to put up a huge big fence because it just looked bad. So we ordered all like the Tibetan prayer flags to put up against the roof of the coop. And they're like, Mom, what do those flags mean? And I was like, they're going to bring us some Zen. Like, you throw your prayers to the wind, you watch the flags get tattered, your prayers are lifted up. They're going to bring us some Zen. Hence Zen Hen. And so that's how it started.
Yeah. So I'm picturing you guys have this amazing spot for your 3 girls, and like, you are probably just thinking, wow, we have a little slice of heaven. Things couldn't be better.
Yeah.
And then, all of a sudden enter not only COVID, but then your youngest, and at the time she was 8 when she was diagnosed.
She was, yeah.
And then how does it Stella and Lou, like where are their ages in that?
Then Lulu's the middle. So there's
Okay.
there's 3 years between Lou and Willie.
Okay.
So Lulu was 8 and then Estella was in 8th grade.
Okay, got it. So, and Willie had started to present with some symptoms. Her gait had changed. She was having you could tell something wasn't right.
I had her in and out of the doctor since late fall with just random nauseousness and throwing up, which is the thing that she hated most in this world, just throwing up. But it was also, she was in 2nd grade. She, was in and out. There were germs everywhere. So there was always some reason that the pediatrician gave, that there was a fever, so she must have had a virus. There was, but then there were times there wasn't a fever. Well, then they did a test and it came back that she had mono at the time. So we're like, oh, that's why. Her handwriting was off, but it was COVID. We were homeschooling while I was trying to work full time, and she would bring down her work to me, and it seemed just really scratchy and sloppy. I'm like, Willie, she's like, Mom, I'm trying my best. And I honestly just thought she hates homeschool. They just are trying to get done with their work so they can go outside and play. So there were all these little things that just seemed like normal. They had normal childhood explanations until Easter morning, we went out for the egg hunt, and her sisters jumped off the front porch, and Willie stopped and sat down and then started walking. And my husband was like, why didn't you jump, Willie? She's like, I don't think I can, Dad. And then her gait, she was dragging her one foot, and he brought her in and he was like, I want you to sit down and write your name. And when she couldn't she could, but it was not legible. He's like, we're going down to Children's right now, and took her down in the MRI. Showed just a huge tumor in its midbrain. So resection or operating wasn't an option because it was right smack in the middle of her brain. So this was the initial part of COVID. The hospital was just learning how to operate with literally days in of trying to figure out how to operate. And so they did the surgery the next morning to relieve the pressure. That's why she was throwing up so much. And biopsied it so we could find out what kind of tumor it was. Well, they tried to rush it and send it directly to New York City to help expedite so we could find out what it was and then treat accordingly. The day the sample got to New York was the day New York City shut down for COVID. So we didn't have true answers for almost 3 weeks, and which in retrospect is actually awesome because she came home. The surgeon who we've become friends with was awesome. He braided her hair really a cool way so he didn't have to shave it. And she had this wacky scar, but she felt better because all the pressure was gone. And we had those 3 weeks of not really knowing what it was, just that there was a tumor, but we didn't know, we didn't know anything else. So we lived and enjoyed and, just enjoyed each other.
And from what I was reading too on your Caring Bridge, I was very taken with not only your faith throughout all of this, but just the way you really, and I'm sure you had some really hard and still have hard, impossible moments, but the way that you were able to do your best to live in the present and try as you might to put the anxiety, the fear, the what ifs to be there and soak all of that in. I mean, I'm sure that was very hard.
Yeah. But I feel like you just don't have a choice when your husband's working through COVID, dealing with this diagnosis of his youngest daughter. You have 2 others, and we were insulated from the rest of the world, but we were insulated on this beautiful piece of land that just brought us so much joy so we could go out and explore and play with the chickens and let the dogs run and, sit by the fire and not be on top of one another.
Yeah.
And I think it was just, we can choose, it was a choice every day.
Yeah.
But, when how it is being a mom, you take the reins and you're like, this is how we're going to do it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there were days when the girls and I would just walk to the back of the property and scream fuck at the top of our lungs until we felt better and we got it out, and then we'd start laughing and carry on.
That's actually a really good way.
I know. I still do it to this day.
So I want to talk about Willie. I took a screenshot here. And
which one?
so it's just something that you guys wrote just to give an idea. And then I want to hear from you.
Okay.
So Willie loved to laugh. She loved to dance. She was the youngest. She did what she wanted exactly when she wanted. I was like, you look at her pictures, you're like, yep. That sounds right. She cherished her big sister. She was always surrounded by her dogs, cats, and chickens. She was quick on the soccer field and fast in the pool. Butterfly was her favorite stroke. Willie loved all of God's gifts. Worms, frogs, turtles, fireflies, and ladybugs all came to know the palm of her hand. I love the way you said that.
Oh, thanks.
She loved ice cream, candy, pasta and Parmesan. Sweet Willie loved Jesus. She faced treatment with a brave heart because she knew she was never alone. So give us some imagery or snapshots of Willie.
Yeah. She, I think looking back on it now, there's a lot that, not that I blocked out, but just that I don't remember. I think because we just put our heads down and kind of just tried to get through it. But I had taken the girls, Jason and I took the girls to church from the time they were young, just Sunday school, so they could learn the basics like we did. I just want them to be educated so then they could make their own choices as they grew and, expanded their minds. Willie hated Sunday school. She always would beg and ended up sitting in church with me. She was a third. She was attached. But from the moment she was diagnosed, after my mom passed, there were a couple times that she would come in and say, I smell Nona, or God told me Nona's in the room, or just these very weird, spiritual things where we would look at each other like, how, there's no explanation, but she was very certain of these things. She was diagnosed. We were driving down to the James. We did 6 weeks of treatment, back and forth, Monday through Friday. And I'm looking in the back, and, only one parent with COVID was allowed to attend. So I'm driving one day, and I'm looking in the rear. I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you have your stuff, Dan? She was like, Mom, I am fine. I'm like, okay. She's like, I'm not alone back here. And I was like, oh, which stuffed animals did you bring today, Willie? She was like, none. She was like, God's sitting right beside me, Mom. And it was just, from that moment on, she knew she wasn't alone. And she kind of just led us down her path of faith. And I just started reading scripture and verses and listening to sermons a little bit different, with more of a knowing, like, that's what that means, and it was just this very organic thing that happened. And her last summer, of 21, we went to vacation Bible school, and she had me go every night with her. She didn't want to be alone, but her sisters were volunteers and she wanted to attend. And so we went around, and there's usually about 300 or 400 people at vacation Bible school. And Miss Rebecca, who, was one of my dearest friends, she's the youth director there, the children's ministry director. She always asked for a kid to come up and lead prayer at the end of the first night. And Willie's never wanted to participate. She shot her hand up, strutted up there, and gave the prayer. Then every Sunday they have a closing program ceremony where all the kids come and perform in front of, and the church is usually packed with all the parents. Well, Willie marched up to her and she was like, Miss Rebecca, I'd like to lead the prayer at church on Sunday. So she went up in front of, there were probably 500 or 600 people there, and spoke her words and led in prayer. And those were the things that I think kept me going, my husband, Estelle and Lou, just the way, her childhood faith, and if you start to read into the Bible where they say your faith, have faith like a child, like you just, this unknowing, unconditional faith. And I think that's what kept us all going. But mind you, she was a little shit. This will explain her. When she's 4, she comes stomping down the stairs into the kitchen, hands on her hips. Dad, I am so mad at you. Why? You named me a bad word. He's like, what do you mean I named you a bad word? She's like, Wilhelmina. And he looked at her without skipping a beat. And he was like, well, it's better than Will shit, Mina. And so from then on out, whenever she was getting sassy frassy, we're like, well, shit, Mina's in the house today.
Oh my God.
So she was little and mighty. Like Stella and Lou are tall. Willie hadn't hit her growth spurt yet. She was just all muscles and could, had great athletic ability and just loved all those creatures in her hand. Would start out in the palm of her hand, but then usually end up in a shoebox in her room. And so I would find there were these frogs that she had to bring in, toads. I was like, Willie, one night, just one night only, cut holes in the top of the box, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, Mom, okay. Stuck them under her bed. She comes down, crying, bringing them down, and they're dead in the box. And I was like, they were alive last night. And Lulu comes following her down. She's like, Mom, she came into my room and told me that they smelled and asked and stole my Bath and Body Works spray and was trying to make their habitat smell better. So she killed them with them. I'm like, oh. But, and then our neighbor, has a pond. He found little quarter-sized turtle babies that she just had to have. So we got the aquarium, had these turtles. Turtles are the smelliest creatures to keep in an aquarium.
Uh-huh.
They're disgusting. But those turtles, we finally released them, and they imprint. And so it's funny, like I'll be out around the pond and I'll see one of those turtles, and I'm like,
there she is.
There she is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you were, so this was an 18-month,
Yeah.
probably felt at sometimes like it was going so slow, and then at other times just like a flash of what just happened.
Yeah.
When did you know as a mom, like this wasn't going in the direction that you wanted it to go?
I knew when it was diagnosed as glioblastoma, it was terminal. I knew that word. But then I also had this faith, because I think the good thing, and when I say good, I mean, Willie didn't spend a ton of time in the hospital. After her initial surgery, she had a second surgery to have a shunt put in to keep the fluid draining so she didn't have the pressure. And then the chemo, the radiation, we weren't in the hospital a lot. We would go down for, quarterly MRIs. There was always moderate changes, it shrunk a little or it did that. And it was just, she was still Willie, she walked a little funny, but that first summer after being diagnosed and after the radiation, she swam 25 laps every day in the pool in our backyard. And her neurologist and oncologist were like, she lived,
Yeah.
She lived. And so it's like I knew, one part of my brain knew, but the other part of my brain had faith and hope that, God would bless us with a miracle. And so it was just kind of that internal struggle the whole time. So she went into hospice. It was Labor Day weekend of 21. We had just gotten back from our last family vacation, not knowing it would be. And she just got up in the morning. She had slept with me. My husband worked overnights at that time. And she got up to go to the bathroom and then just kind of collapsed in my arms. And we took her to the ER up in Lewis Center. And then they rushed her in an ambulance down. And, I mean, they could have cut into her skull to relieve pressure and do, But we had made the decision. And so we decided to bring her home. And we brought her home September 4th. And she passed on October 6th. So, but that month, we set her up downstairs. And I slept downstairs with her every night. And she was surrounded by all of our things. She had visitors. We had a wheelchair to take her outside. Her dog slept with her every night. We would just all lay together and be together. And in the first couple weeks, she could actually still eat and feed herself. And a lot of her friends sent us ice cream because I told them she would have ice cream for breakfast every day. Just at that point.
Right.
So, and it was weird. I struggled at first having her at home in this new home that we had built. I'm glad we did it. I mean, I don't have any regrets, but I always wondered how I'd feel about that space because it was also down in our main living space, but I don't regret it at all. Like her spirit's everywhere.
Yeah.
And, the girls would rush home from school and just lay in bed with her and tell her about her day. Miss Rebecca, that children's ministry director, filmed little Bible stories, and I would lay in bed because she couldn't go to church anymore and just play them, and Willie would smile. And so, yeah.
I can just picture as a mom, like I just, just nothing harder. So,
I mean, everyone says that, but then everyone has their own journey too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're right. And so speaking of that, so this happens, and I think you wrote this too, that she skipped.
Away.
Yeah. That took it like,
Yeah. Because that's what she did. I mean, she was just a ball of, all three of my girls are so different, but they're all full, full of personality. And I know in my heart of hearts, when I visualize and close my eyes, she just grabbed his hand and was like, come on.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. That got me when I read that. So Willie skips away to heaven, and then here you are now, a family of 4.
Yeah.
And so then you have to figure out how to pick up those pieces and honor her memory, and also, make your life the best that you can make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until you see her again.
Right.
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 And so there's another screenshot that something else you wrote that really got me. I was like, this really resonated with me. And you wrote it about grief. So on your caring bridge, this is after she passed away, and you logged back in.
Okay. Yeah.
And you called it a tangled ball of Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is so good for people who have gone through or are going through something. Any kind of grief will resonate with this. It says, a tangled ball of Christmas lights, all rolled up together. It's difficult to find the beginning or end. You get so frustrated trying to untangle them. Then the lights flash on for a brief moment, and you feel a spark of spirit and joy. Lights flash off, and you're left holding a messy ball of cords and crap. You know what's there, and once things are entangled and plugged in correctly, the light will be constant. But until then, flickers of light combined with a tangled mess of feelings. That's the best way I can describe grief.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And we had just put up our Christmas tree, and I was standing there, and I was like, wait, this is how my freaking brain, heart, body, everything feel at the moment. And it's weird with the Carrying Bridge. It was very cathartic, therapeutic to write. The girls like to write sometimes too. And I would always, it was Willie's story. So she would pick out the photos that I would post. And I wanted to carry it on after she passed, but I also, the words just come. It's not like I can sit and plan. And, sometimes I've wanted to post, and I sit down and I can't get a word out besides, I can't get any words out. So it just struck me, and I went back to that and read it, and I'm like, it was spot on with how I felt. And I think that's going to be true for the rest of my life and, my family's life. It's just learning that is how you will feel, and allowing the ups and the downs and the swings, that, let the pendulum go, because you're just not sure how it's going to be that day. But you're not sure how it's going to be that day, but you also have a choice to make every morning, and you can choose to stay in the darkness, or you can choose to go out and try to find the light and be the light. But I think when you go out and you try to find the light, then you end up being the light for a lot of people. And I found that at the shop, just people coming in with their own stories, and it's been this very organic kind of, I hate to say healing, because I feel like healing has a beginning and an end. I don't think I'll ever be healed. We're transformed. It's just always going to be a journey. But a lot of people have come in and they start sharing their own stories with me, and it helps me. It helps them, and then there's really cool shit in the shop that they can buy. So it's just like this ball of fun. I mean, I hate saying fun, but it's just, and the space at the shop, Willie was never in that space physically. And so I don't have any weird memories there, but she's in there now spiritually, like so much. And so, it's a good vibe.
Yeah. I can only imagine. And so it's the idea of grief is just such a big topic.
Yeah.
And it's one where if you have never experienced, and listen, not everyone's going to experience child loss. And that is a grief that no one should ever feel. But there are a lot of different flavors of grief out there that are they're all horrible.
They're all, yeah.
So trying to figure out and helping people understand that there is joy and grief live together. They do. They live together. And the more you love, the greater the love, the harder the despair.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's wild how people can look like almost like you're in a fish tank, right? This happened to you, and how are they doing? What's going on? Wait, they're smiling. Oh, wait, they're enjoying themselves. People have a real hard time because they don't know how they haven't walked the path.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's it's very important for people to see that you can go through the worst, most unthinkable journey and come out stronger, different,
Yeah.
stronger, resilient, and you can still, I don't like to say be happy. To me, happy is not a constant. Happy is a fleeting feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you say content, at peace.
Moments of happiness.
Correct.
Yeah.
Happy is something that happens here and there.
Yeah.
That's
And
a
you
whole nother podcast, right?
Yeah,
like
that's true.
People who just want to be happy. Like,
Yeah.
okay, happy is a fleeting thing. It's like you should strive more for contentment, peace, stability, and all these things, and let those waves of happiness come and go as they inevitably will.
True. Very true. I agree. It's been a weird, it was hard for us to grasp too. I think we were wondering, how are we going to feel? What's it going to be? I remember one of the social workers from hospice came up to the house maybe like a week after the funeral and to pick up Willie's wheelchair. And I walked out of the garage. She was like, "Oh, you're dressed and walking around." And I was just like, "Yeah." And she was like, "You're still early in the grief." And that's just kind of stuck with me. And I was like, well, what does she, but then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know. I've never lost a child before. Like, she's a social worker. She knows everything. Am I supposed to be in bed? Am I supposed to feel and not do these things? And so it's just, I think, learning and making, again, the choice that, but it's not always easy. You have people that will look at you weird, that act weird, that don't say things, that say too much, there's, really, really close friends that just, I think, don't know how to act. So then they talk about themselves a lot because they don't know what else to talk about because they're scared to ask us questions or be normal like before Willie was, So it's just, yeah.
And that's a real thing too. Let's hit on that because I do feel empathy for people because, we've all been that person where you don't know, like, okay, just like yesterday when I call you and we're having a pre-call and I start crying and then I'm like, Carrie, she's a woman just like you. Like she lost a child. You've lost a child. Like, why are you acting? Why are you like walking on eggshells around this? Like I really had that moment, right?
Yeah.
So you can only imagine people who've never felt people who aren't in this arena are like, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
My experience and what I tell people always is always say something. Even if even if your words come out wrong, even if you have two left feet, I think when you say nothing, even though I know most of the time it's not because you don't care, it's very isolating and it can make you feel very alone. So just say something.
I've learned that too. You think back to the deaths and weird events that you've experienced before I've walked this path. And I'm not proud of my actions or words or lack thereof. But again, I give myself a little grace and I try to give everybody else grace. But I think I said this to you earlier. I want to give people grace, but I'm also not going to hide my truth just to make you feel comfortable that this is my world. This is, how it revolves around us now. And so in order for me to keep moving forward, I have to share my truth and, expose kind of raw parts and things and talk about it. And if it makes you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. But in saying I'm sorry, I also want to teach people that it's okay to feel uncomfortable and to have that weird conversation about, things, and, ask questions, about, I don't see how anyone can grieve without an anchor. And what I've realized is everyone's anchor is different. My anchor is God and my faith. That's our family's anchor. And everyone's looks different. I mean, that's a whole other podcast on religion and spirituality. But it's scary that just people don't feel comfortable enough just to say the words.
Mm-hmm. What, looking back after Willie passes and the dust settles and you start to sort of feel like there's some, I don't even know if normalcy is the right word, but you start to feel life starting to hum and drum again, and you feel yourself almost wanting to do something normal, or the feelings of guilt, like if you even, like, let's say, I don't even know the example of, like, went shopping or thought, oh, this is cute on me. Or you're like, wait, how can I possibly be trying something on or getting my nails done? Like, how did that sort of...
You know what? I have 2 other teenage girls. Yeah. And I thank God for that, because it doesn't, I say they didn't deserve it, that life isn't fair. We try to teach them that young, and you just have to roll with it. But I mean, this is a big one. And, we say it multiple times a day, a week, that you will learn from this. You have learned from this. You can take almost anything life's going to throw at you, because you've already handled something that not many people will ever have to handle at that age. So I had to get up and do it and be there for them. And, I wanted to see them laugh and them do things and be their mom still, not just, So I'm thankful for that. I think that's kind of but there's still moments, and, there's still, the guilt doesn't ever go away. You just think back all the time. Like, why didn't I push? Why didn't I think this? Why didn't I do this? Does she know how much she was loved? Does she know how much she's missed? But I allow myself those moments, but then I allow myself to close that part and move on.
Yeah. And the 2 older girls, I'm sure it's changed them in ways that...
It's couldn't be more proud of their resiliency and their faith. It allowed their faith to grow. We have talks all the time about our reunions in heaven with Willie. And they've learned to, reach out and pray when they miss her. And, and it sounds stupid and cliche. Oh, she's in a better place. But when you think, when you sit and you just, she's running, she's laughing, she's with her dogs that, are up there too. Like, it's just, there's a calming presence to it. And that presence is God. And just a reminder that we didn't lose her. We know where she is. Yeah. And we'll see her again someday.
Now, Jason, we talked about this a little bit, how grief is different for everyone. But in a situation like this, a mother versus a father, a man versus a woman, and your grieving process and how that maybe was parallel, wasn't parallel, or how have you guys been able to sort of come together, or what's been the, what does that look like for you guys?
It looks different every day. It's honoring that I think we both know each other's looks, the feeling, our body language to allow that. But I think we have a shared faith, and we both know that and understand that deep in our hearts, and know where Willie is. And I think that has guided us and will continue to get us through. And, we laugh and joke and tell Willie stories every minute of every day. Like, she lives on in all those stories. But then we all have sad times too. And I've learned not to push those down. Daddy's having a rough day. I'm having a rough day. And we've also learned that, my oldest daughter is a very outward griever. She likes to look at lots of pictures of Willie and talk about things. And the 3 of us, Lulu, my husband, and I, are not. Like, we keep it in to ourselves, and we're still grieving, but I still can't sit on my phone and scroll through pictures. I've had to a couple times just with, people asking questions that's not therapeutic for me. But I want to honor how everyone is differently. And so we've had a couple family for example, Willie's birthday this year, September 26th, it was 10 days before she passed. We kept the girls home from school and we drove down to Yellow Springs, and with the intent to have just a fun day, walk around at Zen Hen. I was doing a pop-up shop there in a couple of weeks, and I wanted to check out Yellow Springs again. And we did it. It was okay. It was not what any of us imagined, because we all kind of dealt with things differently, And so I expected this big, forced family fun, honoring Willie. And it was just, we're kind of, the four of us were each in our own little worlds. And that was kind of the epitome of it. It's like we wanted to do something to honor that day. But then I realized, maybe it's not like a group family thing. Maybe so-and-so needs to go write about it and look, make a video, and I just need to, so it's a daily thing.
But you're probably right. Maybe it's just, and you'll figure it out maybe over time, but maybe you all just need to feel what you're feeling.
Yeah. And communication with each other is just what's key, because that's the biggest struggle as a mom, is wondering, and I don't want to touch too much on it because it's their story too, but just my biggest struggle post everything is dealing with the girls, what's normal teenage girl behavior and issues versus what's, what grace I should allow them because of dealing with their sister, and what those boundaries look like, and when I, put my foot down, when I don't, when I think it's this. That's like the ever revolving thing in my head that keeps me up at night.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Because there has to be ripple effects of this in their behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, it's trauma.
Yeah. It's trauma. Of course it's trauma, but then you also, I'm like, you're not that big of an asshole, are you? Why are, I know you're grieving. I was just sitting praying with you, but then now you're acting like this, and I don't.
Well, we do have to lean pretty heavily on the teenage hormones. You can't discount.
That's what I remind myself.
There's a lot of parents out there right now listening, thinking there's a lot of, that going on.
And and I have a wonderful friend, therapist, and she's able to talk me through it. And I always keep in the front, Tara, they have monkey brains. Their frontal lobe's not fully developed yet. They don't understand what they're doing. So,
it's actually very true.
I know. And I just have to remind myself of that. It's like, how can you be so resilient and mature and have walked this path and made all these, very big decisions and choices to move on every single day. And then
this.
You do a dumb teenager thing, and I want to,
They're out there. They hear you.
Yeah,
okay, so let's talk Zen Hen, because I love this. I love what's happening. So Zen Hen is this boutique that you have in Powell.
Yes.
And talk us through when that actually started and kind of the evolution of what's happening there.
So the hens that brought us Zen back in April of 2020, I had to stop working to take care of Willie. And I had worked in different aspects of fashion my whole life. And I knew I'd always wanted to be a shopkeeper. That was a dream from when I was a little girl. But I started just dabbling with different hats and T-shirts with the Zen Hen logo and that I created, and just kind of was playing with different things. And, the girls and I would talk about it. Jason and I would talk about it. It was a fun family thing, trying to figure out, this would look cool on a hat. This could make a cool T-shirt. The first sweatshirt we did was with the Zen Hen logo. I actually brought it to you, and it says Zen is cluck on the back. So we had a lot of fun thinking of different clucking things to incorporate. And so it started there, and I started selling them online. I created the Instagram page when we first got the chicks just to follow, because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, chickens became such a big thing in COVID, but we had already had ours. And so everyone just wanted to see, from the egg, how they evolved. And so then it just I started doing pop-ups last summer. Once Willie passed, I stopped. I'm like, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I know. I just know I need to clear my head. But it was still there, and it's like it was born and grew inside of me. So in my head, I'm always thinking, oh, that could be a Zen Hen thing. That could be a Zen. So I started expanding and did a few pop-ups last summer, and then came up with the hashtag Cluck Cancer, and that kind of took off. And, it gave me a reason to share my story, but lighthearted and fun, reason to share my story a little bit, just people will laugh, but then, tell me more. And it was becoming, the product had overtaken our house. There were boxes everywhere. And my husband's like, what are we doing? How's this growing? What's this look like? And I'm like, I think I need a shop. Couldn't find anything. And the current spot in downtown Powell, I had asked about it. It was rented, and we call it a Willie wink. Did you read about the Willie winks at all? It was something, a friend just happened to be with the landlord, the leasing agent, and when they got the call that the person that they thought they leased it to fell out, it called me on a Thursday night at like 9:00. The space is open. Can you see it tomorrow? And I went in, and they had completely redone it. It was better than I expected or thought. And I signed the lease that Monday. And then we opened within a month just because we needed to. And it put my head down. We all did. My husband helped me. He built the counter. He painted some things. The girls helped. I mean, it's when something is meant to happen and meant to be, it keeps us going. It keeps me happy. It keeps the story keeps just sharing itself. And, when people can come in and cry to me and hug me and tell me, thank you for sharing your story, here's mine, then I know. And I kept praying and asking Willie for signs that, is this okay? Am I, and she always delivered. And the whole family's delivered and just rallied around and supported. And so Zen Hen has since expanded to the shop. Every item that we carry, I want to have its own story. I don't want it to be something, just a pretty shirt that I want it to so I've been able to uncover these lines that these women or other people are creating that allow, me buying their stuff to sell in my shop is sharing their story. So I have this line of jewelry and leather goods from Able. It's a company in Nashville. All women, they provide employment and benefits to women as they come out of incarceration. And the jewelry, each woman signs her piece, the little jewelry card when she's done. And I have, everything has its own reason to be. And it's just kind of beautiful, and it's blossomed into a larger story. So,
yeah. I just think hearing that alone and how impactful that is. I hope somebody out there, who's in some kind of dark place, who doesn't feel like there's any sort of hope or light, you can see that however it manifests for you, like there is something that can come out of the unthinkably hard.
Yeah.
If you look for it.
You just have to look for it. And there's days I don't want to look for it. And I think there always will be. We're human. I mean, we have all these emotions because we're meant to feel all these emotions. Like it struck me when you were talking about, the more you love, the harder you're going to lose. And that spectrum of all those feelings, we just have to allow ourselves to feel them. But I mean, Will Shipmina would not want me sitting in a dark corner crying. She would want me running and, hugging people and sharing her story and making new stories and, keeping the story going.
Yeah. And it's when we say keep moving or stay strong and, find the light, I think sometimes it might turn someone off who's like, wait, what? I am in a really, really deep, dark place. It doesn't mean that you're constantly doing that. So when you're, like looking into my own grief journey, You know, there are definitely days, I mean, where you sit and you just cry and you put the covers over your head and you let yourself be there.
Yep.
But I think that where you have to remember is like whether it's Willie's whisper, Mom, get up, or my little girl's whisper, like, come on, like you can't, like you have to keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah. They would want that. You know, moms move. Moms move.
Moms move. Yeah.
Moms move.
Yeah.
But, you know, and yeah. And sometimes I feel, and, you know, riding the carrying bridge and some of those things like searching, like they can become cliche, especially when you're down and out and have zero energy to do anything. But it's just rolling over and opening one eye sometimes. Okay, there's a little bit of light out there. Okay, if I sit up, there's a little bit more light.
Yeah.
If I get up and walk, there's a little bit, you know, those little steps that some days you just don't want to take any of them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's about, you know, it's a choice, and the world is big and beautiful. It's small and nasty, but you know what? We choose to see the big and beautiful, and the small and nasty is just one little bit of it.
I totally agree. And on that note, where can people find you online?
So zen-hen.com is the website. Instagram is @thezenhens. Give me a little grace on the website. I've kind of ignored it a bit since I opened the shop, but the phone numbers and everything is listed there, and I'm happy to, you know, take calls at the shop and send people whatever they'd like. I'm posting a lot of things on Instagram that haven't made it to the website yet, and so people are like, when can I? But all they have to do is get a hold of me and I'll get it to them.
Yeah, or they can just get them the shop function on the gram. They can just start clicking there.
Exactly.
Who needs a website?
I know. I know. That's it's you're speaking my language, woman. You're speaking my language.
Well, Tara, this has been truly, I mean, I just feel so grateful that you came and shared your story. And I got to know Willie through all of that. And so you are a testament that there can be joy and hope in the darkest of moments.
Yeah. I hope that sharing my story and crying some of these tears, you know, lets someone else know that too. And they can keep carrying on.
Yeah. And so for everybody out there, if you want to keep following me, that would be amazing. You can follow me on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. And until next time, keep moving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.
That was so good.